Devas. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for joining today. I wanted to seek the blessings of Radha Mata, Radha Shamsundar, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Gonita, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. So we continue with Bhagavad Gita. We have summarized very briefly the first 13 chapters. And today we start on the first 12 chapters. Today we start on the 13th chapter, which is the beginning of the Gyan Yoga section of Bhagavad Gita. And why is that called Gyan Yoga section? Because lots of questions are asked by Arjuna to Krishna, especially in chapter 13. The final 6 chapters focus on Gyan, transcendental knowledge, which helps one become detached from materialistic aspirations and simultaneously attaches one to Krishna. So knowledge is very powerful. Well, knowledge is very important. And in spiritual context, knowledge is used as a sword against ignorance, because ignorance is why we are, unfortunately, here. So this knowledge cuts through this ignorance so that it can allow us to understand who we are, why we are here, and who is God. What's our relationship with God? So chapter 13 covers topics previously discussed, but explores them in a more analytical way. Thus, wise readers can take advantage of the logical presentation made by Krishna to strengthen their conviction and deepen their understanding. So the themes are as follows. Arjuna asks Krishna to define 6 subject matters. So he asks, what is Prakriti? What is Purush? What is Kshetra? What is Kshetra Gyan? What is Gyanam? And what is Gyanam? And Arjuna, Krishna answers them throughout the chapter. He answers these questions. What is Prakriti? Prakriti is the world that we're living in, the material nature, which is by its very nature temporary. It will not last. And we, the Kshetra Gyan, the soul, have come into this material world and trying to associate with the material world. But it's very hard for us to align ourselves to the material world because this world is temporary. We are eternal beings. So we are trying to force a permanent reality in a temporary situation, and it is incompatible. And that is why we are always struggling. We are always in some sort of distress because we will not find a permanent situation or a permanent solution to our situation in this world. So Krishna explains about this material world. Then he talks about Purush, who is the enjoyer, and Purush is the Supreme Lord. We are Prakriti, we are to be enjoyed. Purush is the one who enjoys us. He is the master, we are the servant. So Purush is effectively the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if we can understand that He is our life and soul, if we can understand that He is the one who gives us shelter, He is the one who guides us, He provides everything that we need, just like a loving father. Then Krishna describes the third aspect, which is Kshetra. Kshetra is the field of knowledge, the body, which is the body, the field of knowledge. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, this body, and also the mind, intelligence, and ego, the subtle body. So Krishna describes the activity, the field of activity, where the soul performs or thinks it's performing some activities. Kshetra Gyan is the one who Gyan means knower, knowledge. Kshetra Gyan is the knower of the Kshetra field, and that is the soul. We, to a certain degree, know our body. but only to a certain degree. We can't really understand the functions of the body completely. For example, we don't know how our hair grows. Once you cut it, it grows back. The nails, when you cut it, it grows back again. So we, the soul, cannot necessarily fully understand the functioning of this body, but we have some idea. So that's why we are Kshatriya. And jnana is knowledge and the process of knowing, getting that knowledge. And as we discussed before, knowledge is so powerful and very important in this material world. And Gyayam is the object of knowledge. And what is the object of knowledge? Is to understand the basic principles that who actually are we. If we're thinking with the body, then we have an issue. But if we at least have a theoretical knowledge that we are Atma, and that knowledge, object of the knowledge, is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Lord, so that we can somehow or other connect, because we have a connection which we have forgotten. Another object of knowledge is to re-establish that connection. Krishna describes what is knowledge. So he gives quite a vivid description of what is ignorance and what is knowledge, how the impermanent nature of this world is ignorance, and the permanent nature of the spiritual world is knowledge. And he describes the nature of the soul. The nature of the soul is to be happy. But in this condition, it is unhappy because it is trying to connect with and associate with the temporary nature of this material world. And then Krishna explains about this material nature, how it works, the three modes, gives a little hint of the three modes, and it's in the soul's interaction with the three modes. And then in the 14th chapter, he gives a lot more information about the three modes of material nature, which is very important subject matter. Because these three qualities, these three modes, which are Satogun, Rajagun, Tamagun, goodness, passion, and ignorance, they permeate everything that we do, everything that we are interacting with, everything we see, everything we hear, taste, touch, smell. It is governed by these three modes of material nature and our consciousness within those three modes. So our lifestyle, our attitude, our behaviors, they fall under these three modes, depending on which mode is controlling us. So if we are controlled by the mode of goodness, then our behavior will be very good, and we won't be very sinful. We won't be sinful at all. And it will be in happy mood, full of knowledge. If we're in passion, we'll be running around trying to, fulfill our desires, earning money, and, trying to buy possessions, get possessions, which we think will make us happy. And ignorance is where we really are foolish and not aware of anything. We mainly, engrossed in sleep or taking drugs and being a nuisance, really. Through closer analysis, we can perceive how people are functioning in this world with a mistaken belief of free will, when in actuality, they are impelled to act according to these influences of the three modes of material nature. We have some free will, but it's quite minute. The reason being, if we are trapped in a certain condition of thinking, then our free will is actually governed by goodness, passion, or ignorance. We don't necessarily act for our own goodness, for our own welfare. We act according to how the modes dictate to us. So that concept of free will almost disappears. Although God has given us free will, but because we are conditioned by this body and the material modes of nature, practically speaking, we cannot act according to that free will that has been given to us by God. Therefore, unless one is able to transcend these three modes of material nature, they will act perpetually, they act to perpetually trap in this material world. So these modes trap us in this world. It gets us deeper and deeper. Even goodness is not good enough. Even when he's in the mode of goodness, one is still attached to the condition of happiness. And in this world, there is no happiness. So ultimately, even the mode of goodness is not going to help us. So what are the three modes? That's what is described in this chapter, what the three modes are, how to understand how they work, understanding how they work, how the different modes, a person who's in the different modes behaves. What are the attributes of one who is in each of the modes? So mode of goodness, one would be sinless. Mode of passion, one would be full of both sinful behavior and also good behavior, partly good behavior. But in the mode of ignorance, it's just sinful behavior. It's really destructive behavior. And the Lord is very kind because he also describes how one can transcend these three modes of material nature. So he gives an idea of how once we link with the Supreme Lord and our acts are in bhakti, connected with the Supreme Lord. So we all have to act, but that action can be done in goodness, passion, ignorance, or it can be done in bhakti, satagun, pure mode of goodness. And the example, very easy example to understand, which we always give, is the food. We can be in ignorance and eat, horrible food which smells not so good and over spicy and meat, fish, eggs. Or we can eat food which is in the mode of passion, which includes onion, garlic, and too hot, too salty. Or we can eat food in the mode of goodness, which is fruits, vegetables, nicely prepared, eaten within 3 hours. Or the best of all, which will help us get out of this world, transcend all the other foods, is prasad. So whatever we cook, we offer it to God, and then we partake in honoring that food, that prasad. So that one act of eating has 4 different classifications, at least. Goodness, ignorance, passion, goodness, or pure goodness. Chapter 15, wonderful chapter, Yoga of the Supreme Person, also known as Purushottam Yoga. The ultimate purpose of Vedic knowledge is to detach oneself from the entanglement of material world and to understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who understands Krishna's supreme identity surrenders unto him and engages in his devotional service. Krishna uses a wonderful analogy to create detachment within the spiritualist and fuel his desire to re-enter his real home in the spiritual realm. So there's a really nice example. I don't know if devotees have seen this comedy, Mr. Bean. So Mr. Bean, he checks into a hotel room and then he starts to paint the walls. He buys new furniture. He refits the bathroom and hangs up family pictures. Now that's quite ridiculous, right? Because it's a hotel room. Nobody would do that because you're not going to stay in that room very long. So there's no point going to all this trouble to decorate it and make it homely, because we're not going to be there long enough. Sounds ludicrous. You don't make arrangements for long-term comfort in a temporary residence. So this world is likened to a hotel room within which people make complicated plans for security and enjoyment. But we're not going to be here that long. So we can spend all of our time looking after the external circumstances that we live in, but we miss the whole point of life. So just like one can go to a hotel and do all this work, but then the next day you check out. So you've done all the hard work, the next day you check out. What was the point? So in the same way, if we spend all of our time making arrangements for comfort in this world, we may miss the very point of life. And most people do. So we have to be very careful that we don't get trapped into this mood of making arrangements to live in this world comfortably, because it's never going to happen. Rather, we live for others. Rather, we live to make this world a better place to live in. Rather, we live to perform service to the devotees, to the Lord. And in that process, we give ourselves, give everything we have, give our time, our money, our effort to serve others. Then we will achieve success in this world. The themes of this chapter: this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual. So Krishna gives an example of a banyan tree where the roots are growing upwards and the branches going downwards. And he's basically explaining how this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. A reflection is not really there, it's just a reflection. But the real object which is reflected is there. It's real, it's present. So in the same way, the spiritual world is real. And this world, although it is also real, but it is simply like a reflection. It's temporary. It will not last. So Krishna gives that example of the banyan tree. Very nice example. Because if you look at the banyan tree, or especially the banyan tree he's describing, the roots growing upwards and the branches going downwards, which is opposite of a normal tree. Krishna also gives a glimpse into the spiritual world, how there's no need for sunshine, there's no need for electricity, because everything is self-effulgent. And especially the Lord is very effulgent. And Krishna describes also how he maintains it at every level. He gives us the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. He supplies the fire within our belly in order to digest the food that we eat. He comes into our belly and digests that food for us while we're sleeping after we've eaten. So he maintains us at every single level. So, and also Krishna describes the different living entities. He describes the Purushottam. He describes his position as the knower of everything, the ultimate enjoyer of everything, of all sacrifice, of everything. And he describes those who are fallen in this world, like we are. We've forgotten God. So, and because of our disconnect with God, we are trapped in this world. So, and then he also describes those who are infallible, those who are in the spiritual world, those souls who understand the Supreme, they understand who they are, and they are serving the Supreme Lord in a very happy way, in his world. So this chapter actually is one of the most revealing, amazing chapters, because Krishna has given everything within this chapter. He's talked about the material world, he's talked about the spiritual world, he's talked about himself, he's talked about how he protects us, how he maintains us. He's talked about us, the fallen soul. He's talked about the liberated souls. So really, it's a phenomenal chapter to read, learn, and understand, study. Very good chapter to learn. So wanted to stop. Yeah, so we can finish off tomorrow about Gita. Any questions, any comments? Okay, we can stop today.
Sorry, Prabhuji.
Oh,
Have you seen this banyan tree roots going up and?
Yeah. In Bharat, in India, these trees are massive trees.
I
Huge.
saw the trees, but I don't know. I never
Yeah,
noticed.
the roots go in and then they come out again.
Yeah. This I saw something like yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Jayanti કહે છે વડનો ચાર.
વડનું ઝાડ આઈ નો
Yeah.
પણ મને ઈ ખ્યાલ નતો કે ઈ જે ઉપર ઓલા દોરી જેવા પાછા આવે છે ઈ એના roots છે.
That's the roots. It goes
I
up.
didn't know.
Yeah. It goes down inside, then it comes up again. That's correct. That's correct. Very unusual.
Yeah. And is it true that tree in all trees in night time they produce carbon dioxide, and daytime
Oh,
they
yeah,
produce.
definitely.
But I know that, but I heard that banyan tree is one only the tree that night time he produce the oxygen, and day I don't know daytime, but I heard that only the one tree is nighttime produce the oxygen. I don't know is right or not.
I'm not too sure. I'm not too
I read somewhere, but I'm not sure. And okay, anyway.
I'm not too sure. But one thing we do know is plants, trees, grass are very, very important to the ecology of this world. Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. Madhuben. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Guru Maharaj ki jai.